Happy Saturday morning, everybody in Tucson, Arizona. We are 1 week away from the Arizona Bowl, Mo.
I know. Yeah, we already have our tickets. We're excited.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, last week, if you didn't catch our episode, everything and anything you wanted to know about the Arizona Bowl, go back on YouTube or Spotify, catch the Marketing Corner. We're super excited here in Tucson for the abundance of crowds coming in from Colorado State and Miami. In fact, next week I will not be in studio. The host of the show will be Candace Eaton, and as long as she doesn't curse live on air, we'll be all right.
Well, good luck with that.
The show will be back in 2025, I promise. So this is my last show of 2024. I just want to start by thanking everybody for your support every week when I'm out and about. People are just excited about the show, comment about the show, and just the enthusiasm and the support. It's very humbling. Very, very grateful. And thanks, Mo, for being a part of this. And this is your
pleasure.
First time, Mo Rousso, first time co-hosting the show. So thank you. And
I was guest number 4. Just want to point
guest
that
number
out.
4. Yeah, it was a tremendous episode. And this is episode 16.
Wow.
Are we 4 months into this about? And it goes by so fast. And every morning I wake up and just excited to do the show and excited to, bring value and, information to local small businesses, entrepreneurs, and marketing experts. Today, Mo invited a guest from the OC.
The OC being the Orange County.
The Orange County. We got our first call-in guest from out of state. Scott Gordon, are you on the line?
I am. Good morning and happy Sweet 16.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, thank you. You're Sweet 16, episode Sweet 16.
Nice.
Scott, thank you so much
Morning,
for
Scott.
joining us. How's the weather out there today? What are you looking at?
I'm up in the mountains locally here, and it's a brisk 48 degrees outside, but it's lovely.
Yeah, we are still in the high 70s, low 80s here, Scott, and it doesn't feel like the holiday season. So real quick, let's get some formalities out of the way. Being from there, are you a baseball fan? Are you an Angels fan, I'm assuming?
I am, yes.
Yeah, I'm a huge baseball guy. My grandfather lived down the street from the Big 8 back in the day, so I love the stadium. I love the crowd there is one of the two best fan base, in my opinion, baseball fans. It's just a cool stadium, cool vibe, not too away.
Yeah, it's a great place to take in a game for sure.
Absolutely. So thank you for joining us. I was corrected by Mo just a second ago because I wanted to make sure you're co-founder and CMO of the Leadership Lab. And Mo corrected me. It's not the chief marketing officer, but
Chief Mindfulness Officer. And that's kind of where we want to, spend our time visiting with Scott, because he has a whole different take on what makes business leaders successful in the workplace and as well as in their market. So this should be a very interesting conversation we have today. I know that this show spends a lot of time on talking about the hardware of running a business, but we've not really spent any time talking about the software. And we're definitely going to take a deep dive into the software. And I've known Scott for a gazillion years. Scott was hired as a salesperson in my first company, and he quickly became the VP of sales there. And then when I sold the company, he was actually promoted to president of the company. So he's besides my company, he's held various roles from CEO and president to COO to CMO to CRO. Basically, if the title had a C in it, Scott's probably had that position. Would you say that's accurate, Scott?
Yeah, I guess it is. I didn't think of it that way, but yeah.
Yeah. So Scott and I have stayed in touch over the years, and we've launched this initiative called the Leadership Lab, where we help business owners and business leaders basically hone their skills in terms of becoming better leaders within their companies. And the real unique aspect of it that Scott brings to the equation is this whole area around mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and so forth. So how is that, Scott, how has that manifested itself in your practices there? My understanding is that you currently do lead a meditation group for a number of business leaders. Is that correct?
I do, yeah, and I want to address the title, the Chief Mindfulness Officer. I didn't make that title up when I was, getting certified in mindfulness and so forth, and I was doing a bunch of study around it. Turns out that Siemens, which is one of the largest companies on the planet, actually has a Chief Mindfulness Officer. And I was reading all about that gentleman, and I said, well, I'm just going to kind of borrow that name. But to answer your question, Mo, so yes, I run a meditation group. It meets every Thursday night. It's business owners in Orange County, CEOs, high-level executives, many of whom are in, travel a lot, very stressful positions, everywhere from startups to entrepreneurs. Right now, I guess we have 3 in startups, 2 in the medical device industry, and 1 in Internet of Things, kind of edge device industry, and then the others are entrepreneurs that have their own businesses. Either they're kicking off new businesses or have very successful businesses in their own right.
Interesting. Scott, what are some of the signs that, for the executives out there, for small business owners, entrepreneurs, that maybe partaking or starting to partake in something that you do, that it's time to maybe, get into, that type of a group where you're meditating? And tell us, a little bit about, how soon someone can maybe see a difference.
Yeah, maybe we could ask them to start with the process.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, what's the process of a typical session that you host?
Yeah, so typically everybody kind of shows up and we all sit in a circle. I limit it to 6, so I have more than that signed up, but I have a hard cutoff at 6. And, guys traveling and stuff, it usually works out that we usually have 6. I rarely have to turn anyone away, but I like to keep them intimate, so that's a big part of it. And we just kind of kick off with, how's everyone doing, what's going on? And they'll share sort of what they might be dealing with or maybe some good news. And then we go around and we share what I call our gifts. And so I'll ask everyone what their gift was this week. And a gift isn't necessarily something people like, well, a gift's a good thing. I often look at things that begin as negative or seem negative and end up becoming blessings after, with the benefit of a rearview mirror. So we'll kind of start there, when we'll start with a situation where someone will go, well, the gift this week was that, we had this product launch that went bad because of X, Y, and Z, but it turned out to be a good thing because of this, right? And it helps people get a different perspective. So after we share gifts, I'll kick us off with a breathing exercise, depending upon, you kind of check in, how's everybody feeling? That's a big part of mindfulness, how are you feeling about things? And I think executives typically have a hard time with this not because they are unfeeling, but because they're moving so quickly all the time that they rarely stop and assess how they're feeling. And so depending upon that, we'll say, okay, well, sounds like everyone's a little, stressed out this week. Let's do a cool down. So I'll do a cool down with like some box breathing, typically like a 4, 7, 8. That's a count. So you breathe in for 4, you hold for 7, you exhale for 8. So we'll do like 5 rounds of that. We'll do a progressive body relaxation where you're tensing and releasing different parts of your body. And then we'll typically go into a 20 to 25-minute deep meditation, and this breathing and this progressive body relaxation helps these folks shift into the mind space where they can actually meditate. We used to just go right into meditation cold, and it was really hard for the guys to get into meditation. So this warm-up is really important. And then we come out and we kind of check back in with everybody. And the funny thing is that a lot of these guys come in and they are just firing on all 12 cylinders. They're all stressed out, amped up. And when I'm done with them, you could pour them out of my office like hot butter.
I would imagine there's got to be a level of trust where it's like what is, said and shared in this group stays within the group.
That's true. We have some rules. Rule number 1 is all phones and devices are shut off. That's the first thing that happens. Rule 2 is that everything that happens, it's called the Laguna Men's Meditation Fellowship. So what happens in fellowship stays in fellowship. And those are the 2 primary big rules that we have. I try to keep it simple, but so it's like, don't go home and share this stuff with your spouse.
Right.
If you're going to share it with somebody because you learned something, please anonymize it, right? Because there's lessons that I encourage people to share, but please anonymize it. We want to, and it took, like any sort of mastermind group or anything like this, it took probably 4 or 5 months before people really opened up.
Mm, yeah, we got about 2 minutes till break, Scott. So, again, kind of going back to, are you working with strictly business owners, executives? Is that just kind of the people? Is there anybody outside of that circle, I guess, or is it just people that are kind of
Yeah,
like-minded?
yeah, that's just sort of my circle, and I just
Mm-hmm.
started it with some friends I was close with that just happened to
Okay.
have those, and then they've invited some of other folks that I've met that weren't in my circle that have come in and joined the group later. I've done it for all their wives because their
Hmm.
wives saw such a fascinating transition in the way that their husbands were
Interesting.
dealing with things
Yeah.
that they asked. They go, "What the heck are you doing? We want to see what you're doing."
Wow.
So I did a whole session with actually 2 sessions with the wives.
Interesting. Yeah. 1 minute till break, Scott. So, is this a weekly? I think you mentioned already. Is it a weekly meeting, or what's the frequency of the meet?
Yeah, we meet every Thursday night. We try to meet every Thursday night. It's not always possible given schedules and stuff, but it's scheduled every Thursday night.
Okay, cool. So as we get into this first break, Scott, hang on the line. Are you going to be with us the full hour? I'm assuming, right?
Yep. Yep.
Awesome. So we got special guest Scott Gordon from up in the mountains in California joining us. Co-host today is Mo Russo. As we get back into the break, Mo's and Scott are both going to tell us a little bit more about the Leadership Lab,
Okay.
and we'll get into more of the benefits that the two of you team up and offer executives, small business owners, future and aspiring entrepreneurs. And we'll be right back after the break. We are back in the marketing corner. I'm your host, Sean Campbell, co-host today, Mo Russo, and a call-in from California, Mr. Scott Gordon. That first segment was fascinating, Scott. I mean, I've never heard of any type of that type of concept or anything like that. I'm very, very intrigued. One question I do have, when you first started this, Scott, was there a level of skepticism from some of the business owners?
Good question.
I don't need this. I'm tough enough. And because honestly, I would be like that. I'm being very, very honest. Initially, I'd be like, nah, I don't.
Typical guy.
You're right,
response, yeah.
right. Short-sighted and everything, but
Probably don't ask for directions either.
right. Do you come up against that, Scott, or?
Oh, 100%.
Okay. So it wasn't a bad question.
Not at
No,
all.
it's a good question.
Okay.
And it was honestly something that I was concerned about when I originally thought of this idea was I had been meditating myself for a year and a half or something and seen some massive benefits from it and wanted to share it. So this is not something I charge for. This is something I just wanted to do.
Wow. Wow.
And so I reached out and had some really, really crazy pushback at first. And I'd say, okay, I'm not going to, try to talk you into it, but just come and check it out. And over time, I had a couple, and then there was sort of, this kind of peer pressure for other people to come check it out because they would hear from the other guys that they were getting something out of it. And the funniest story is the most skeptical gentleman that joined. He's a CRO of a edge company back east. He's based in California, but they're back in the Carolinas. And about 6 or 7 months in to this group, he said, I got this idea. Would you want to come back to Charlotte and host a mindfulness meditation group for our company?
Interesting.
And
Wow.
and then I laughed and I said, well, you were the most skeptical one of all, right?
You want them over, yeah.
And you're flying me back east to do this, and that was a great opportunity. It was a lot of fun. But
Wow.
yes, absolutely. And the crazy thing is that once people kind of see the benefit of it, they really are converted over to the meditation side of things.
Yeah, this is so fascinating, Scott. And again, I know you're going to be on the rest of the show, but thank you so much for calling in and spending some time with us today. Mo, do you think that there's a little more openness where Scott is at in California than what business owners here would be? Because that's kind of my guess.
Well, let me ask one question. So, Scott, what was the reaction you got from the group in Charlotte?
It was this, same thing, right? So, and I've had this at a couple of different companies I've gone to where I've done these, and very skeptical at first. There was one gentleman from India who was on the engineering team who was a big-time meditator who actually was very supportive in the group in getting other people to come around. But the way that I kick it off is I like to talk about the science of it. I like to talk about the neurobiology and the other things. Especially, this was a group of engineers, right? So they want to hear the science. They want to hear the hard facts.
Yeah.
And so I had about a 20-minute presentation where I did that before we started doing anything. And then afterward, this is typical. I see them downloading the meditation apps on their phone and everything after one session, which is pretty great.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So the science and the method behind it, that kind of breaks down that, because for me, and being quite honest, being that quote unquote dude, there's a certain amount of vulnerability that I wouldn't want to share,
Yeah. Would you be willing to try a meditation?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
See where it goes.
100%.
I try to tell people, like, we sort of, especially as we get older in life and we get sort of more hardwired into our habits, we come to accept that we are going to act and behave in a certain way. And yet meditation and mindfulness starts to bring back a certain level of neuroplasticity into your brain, and you can literally rewire your brain. Now, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time and commitment, but that's essentially what happens. I had one gentleman who pulled me aside, been in the group since the beginning, and he said, I used to get mad a lot. I used to get angry all the time at things. And he said, now I catch myself. I'm mindful of the feelings welling up inside me, and I'm able to catch myself before I say something I'm going to regret. And I've known this gentleman for 30 years, and I'll tell you, right? Yeah. I've known him for 30 years, and I'll tell you that was a pretty big evolution for him, and the ability to rewire his brain around being aware. Because most of the time, right, we're reacting. Emotions happen. So there's an emotional response, and then we just erupt or whatever we do. And there's a space in between that emotion, that feeling, and the reacting to that. And if you can catch yourself in that space, you have the ability to make a different decision. And in a high-stress executive environment where everything's moving at a million miles an hour, we don't often have the luxury of finding that space. And that's really what I try to work with executives on is taking that 1 second, that 2 seconds, to just take a moment before you react to that flooding of feeling.
Yeah, I've got to share my personal experience with all this stuff. Up until my mid-30s, I had always been an employee for somebody else.
Yeah,
and not had my own gig going. The last place I was at, the company just basically disappeared overnight as the internet bubble exploded. So I was kind of left scratching my head. Well, what's Mo going to do next, right? And I've got my wife and my kids and all their animals that they've collected over the years to consider supporting. So I heard about this men's retreat up in the mountains, probably not too far from where Scott is right now.
Oh.
And so I went up there, and it was 3 days of just guys hanging out with other guys, and we were meditating in led meditations, journaling, drum circles, little meditative hikes, you name it. And while I was there towards the end of that stay, after I spent all this time engaging in these mindfulness activities, I clearly saw my vision and mission for what I wanted to accomplish.
Wow. And
so what I tell people is I went up on the mountain, meditated, came down off the mountain, shaved my head, and started heliopower.
Wow.
So that was pretty much it. But man, it was so valuable to me to see that. And I've never wanted to work for anyone again.
Yeah. Yeah. Question, Scott. I had a client of mine a while ago, and unfortunately he passed away a few years ago, but he would study business owners and executives, and very high percentage of us developed kind of a form of ADHD, right? As we get into our business, we're trying to multitask, and our attention spans seem to, just shrink, right? Is this something that's common when somebody joins the group, and it's something that is able to kind of not recover from it, but at least address that type of issue?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that question, because, it's something that I struggled with, throughout my life. And there's this sort of red badge of courage that a lot of people wear, not just executives, where they say, well, I'm a very accomplished and talented multitasker.
Yeah.
And what I hear when somebody says that is, I'm really good at getting less stuff done at poorer quality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's what I hear. And so meditation, and it was something that, I benefited from as well massively, which is I went from trying to be this talented multitasker to a very accomplished serial tasker, meaning that I do one thing at a time with complete focus before moving on to the next thing. And the first thing that I noticed was my throughput at least tripled, if not quadrupled.
Wow.
The quality of my work went up substantially. And not only that, I was able to do it all with less stress and anxiety.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're prioritizing, you're knocking things out. And let's face it, we live in a highly distracted society, between our phones and our TVs and the ding-dong and everything happening, grabbing our attention all the time. And, this is the attention economy. That's what Google calls it. That's what all of these tech companies, they sell your attention. And the longer they have it, the more they can monetize it. And so, mindfulness and meditation is your way of kind of getting your brain back from being hijacked by all these devices.
Yeah, one of the things that he taught me, Jim taught me, was, he came around the corner and he looked over my shoulder and my duo screens. He's like, you have 200 windows that you need to close and stop trying to be the gold medalist, in multitasking. Because that, when I worked corporate for about 7-8 years, that I was, told you need to multitask, you can do this, and this. And it was all wrong, But what you just said right now, Scott, is 1,000% true. Now I'm way better, and I see the signs for myself when I'm thinking about too many things at once. Just this morning, I was thinking about too many things at once. So even before you and I started talking, Scott, I went outside, took a deep breath, and I'm like, I need to calm down. I was just all over. I literally did not remember what day it was when I woke up this morning. I was questioning myself, is it Saturday? I'm supposed to meet with Mo and meet Scott, but it was kind of in my head. I had so many things going on. I think the holidays have something to do with it, and
it just depends on where you're at that particular point in time.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. We got about a minute.
It's called monkey mind, right? This is your mind swinging from branch to branch to branch to branch. And it's always been a problem, I think, with the human mind, but it's a problem that's exacerbated by the technology that, we enjoy today, but also maybe enjoys us a little too much.
Yeah, I'm going to get into that struggle right there between, we kind of brought up, our attention spans a little bit and where attention is in our devices, whatever.
Yep.
So on one hand, we got about 30 seconds to the break, Scott. On one hand, I'm a marketer and I'm trying to grab people's attention, whereas on the other hand, Scott, you're trying to hone in people's attention. So
your arch nemesis.
Yeah. You and I are like, you're Batman because you're the good guy, Scott, and I'm like the Joker, because I'm trying to do bad.
I think it's really about, helping people be more intentional about their attention, right? And if there's a marketing pitch that catches you that's relevant to you, then you're able to focus on it better.
All right. So, hey, we're getting back to the bottom of the break. We'll be back in a few minutes. We are back with the Marketing Corner. I am your host, Sean Campbell, and please go out and support the Arizona Bowl next week. 100% of the net proceeds goes to local nonprofits and charities. I will be out there literally, Mo, from 6 a.m. to after the game.
I just want you to know that Kim is on record that if she doesn't get a chance to meet Snoop Dogg, she's coming after you.
Her and about 57 other people have said the same thing. I don't have any influence over Snoop. He has no idea who I am.
But I understand he's going to be there for a couple days or something
He's
like that.
going to be in town for Kim Adair, who is the lead. She's tremendous. She helps coordinate the Arizona Bowl, and she is absolutely wonderful. One of the most tremendous people you will ever meet. I can't reveal anything, though, otherwise she'll kill me. She will walk through this door right now and she'll kill me, Mo. Just be out there. That's all I'm saying.
We got our
Just
tickets.
Be out there.
We're ready to go.
Just be out there.
We have seats right by the tunnel entrance in case Snoop Dogg walks by and
when
Kim can jump him and whatever.
So when you see, the folks coming in from Colorado State and Miami of Ohio, not Miami, Florida, but Miami,
Yeah.
Ohio, when welcome in, welcome in, have them spend more money with us,
Hope they like beer.
Yeah, they do. We have a special guest today from calling in from California, Scott Gordon. Scott, I hear you have a new book. Let's get into your book. It's a change of gear, but let's talk about that.
Yeah, so it's not related to mindfulness. Well, I guess it is sort of related to mindfulness because I'm a coin collector.
Yeah.
And, it takes a tremendous. We talk about ADHD. If you have ADHD, this is not a hobby for you, coin collecting, because it takes a lot of focus and so forth. And it was a hobby that I've been doing my whole life, but came back over the last couple of years as I've kind of dealt with the ADHD things and got more focused on stuff. So the book is called Bits to Bullion. I actually wrote it under a pseudonym. The pseudonym is Morgan Rounds, which is a play on words in numismatics, which is a fancy way of saying coin collecting.
Wow.
But the Morgan is the Morgan dollar, which is one of the most highly collected series. It was around in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And rounds are silver rounds. So what the book is about, it's about, if you're new to the hobby, how do you approach coin collecting? If you're interested in real sound money as opposed to fiat currency, it talks about, how to essentially start stacking precious metals. And then I get into a lot of the difference between balancing stacking precious metals and the numismatic premiums that can be had on certain bullion coins like Morgan dollars and things like this.
If anything, this show has the most syllables any of my other shows has had so far.
I like it. Well, we're not the typical grunting people,
I know,
for sure.
I know.
Yeah, like numismatics.
Yeah.
I love that word.
I want to be, that word's going to be going through my head. Scott, is your book available on Amazon?
Oh, yes, it is.
Okay.
It's available on Amazon. That's Bits to Bullion. And another word, I could throw out another big word, it's exonumia, which are all the things that are related to numismatics. Yeah.
I told you, Mo. During a break, Mo and I were arguing about that very point.
Yeah, we were trying to figure out how to pronounce it properly.
Getting back a little bit on topic, Scott, is there any, when somebody that is in your group, do you kind of, I don't know, for lack of a better, description, kind of customize their process where they recognize, hey, I'm reaching to a boiling point? Does everybody have certain things that they can do, or are there some things that, in general, most people can do to kind of reset themselves?
Every week we do something different. So as I mentioned, we do the check-in with everybody at the beginning. And I used to just have meditations and exercises picked out ahead of time. But as they became more familiar, and many of these folks are doing it on their own now on a regular basis, which is fantastic. So they're coming with their ideas, or I just did this great meditation. Can we all try it together? But let's say, for example, someone's coming in with physical pain. There are meditation exercises that help you deal with pain. So we have our primary pain, which is the physical thing that's hurting you. And then there's secondary pain, which is how your brain is processing how this thing is hurting you. And most people suffer more from the secondary pain than the primary pain. So what we can do is we can get into what's called a progressive body relaxation exercise and we've had situations in these groups where people have seen a complete relief from pain by the end of the session.
Wow.
And I would say that, and some of the guys in the group are engineers, and we've had these things happen, and I'll turn after we get through the exercise, and I'll say, if you guys weren't sitting here in this room and witnessed that, and I just told you at a dinner party that we did this, would you believe me? And they're like, no, wouldn't believe you. But I said, but you witnessed it. So that's physical stuff. There's anxiety if people are feeling particularly anxious. Sometimes we'll work through an exercise where someone's having an issue, say they're having a real challenge at work, and we'll all sort of meditate on the challenge. So the idea will be, let's clear our minds completely, and then let's bring into mind potential solutions to help this individual with the challenge they're having at work. And so, so this becomes sort of more of a mastermind type session where rather than coming in and just hearing about everyone kind of coming in hot and saying, you should do this and you should do that and you should do the other thing. It's more of a collaborative session where everybody clears their mind and we come out of meditation and then we have a discussion about practical ideas that may help.
Aside from, the way you're assisting your group, is there other things that people can do? I mean, people's diets, the people you're hanging out with. I mean, how much does that influence the ability for you to be effective with your group?
I think diet is an incredibly important consideration for everybody, and the linkages that have been made between microbiome and brain neurology, there's a lot of science coming out backing this stuff up, and obviously we are what we eat, so and what we eat impacts how we feel. So just go out and eat a big bag of sugar and then see how you're feeling, an hour later, right? As opposed to having something healthy. So, and mindfulness, I think, does matriculate into those things. You become more mindful, like, oh, I don't feel so well after I ate that thing, or maybe I should be eating, better things, or maybe I should be drinking less beer, or whatever it is, because you become more aware of how you're feeling. You become more aware of how external things are impacting how you feel, and then of course there's the internal things that are impacting how you feel, and mindfulness helps us to create a separation between things that we're feeling internally and authentically and organically, and the external things that are impacting how we feel. And without mindfulness, that all sort of homogenizes into, I just feel bad.
Wow. No. Exercise. I mean, obviously, being outside. There was one thing I did about a year and a half, 2 years ago. It was called the 75 Hard. And I don't know. I think you and I were hanging out.
Right. Yeah.
Where I didn't drink a beer and I exercised for 75 days straight. But what I did wrong, Scott, was as soon as that 76th day hit, unless I drank enough beer to make up for the 75 days, it was such a finality to it. It was a huge misstep because I had lost maybe 15, 20 pounds. I felt tremendous. I didn't realize how bad I had felt until I got rid of some of those habits, took care of my diet. And, part of it is going outside and being outside to kind of reset yourself mentally. And then, but I didn't,
Yeah, outside is the best medicine.
Yeah.
And it's sad, like Thich Nhat Hanh, who is a famous Buddhist monk, has a lot of walking meditations, and I've done walking meditations with my group. In fact, I'm thinking about starting a walking meditation group on Sunday mornings, because being out in nature and clearing your mind is incredibly useful. And you talk about not, realizing how bad you felt until you sort of remove those influences, and it's really sad, I think, for all of us. I think it's a chronic issue in our society, and maybe just as part of being a human, is this whole idea that we just sort of acclimate to feeling bad, and to the point where we don't even realize it anymore because we just get used to it, right?
Right. Yeah. A book I just finished, an audio book, to be fair, was the 5 a.m. Club, where it talks about getting up every morning at 5.
I'm familiar with that one.
Yeah, a very interesting read because a lot of it is supportive of what Scott's talking about. Getting up, going outside, taking a walk. For 20 minutes you exercise right away, then you meditate, and then you kind of plan your day. So 20 in blocks of 20 minutes, I believe it was. So very, very interesting. So we're about a minute and a half into the break, Scott. As we get into the last segment here in a few minutes, let's talk more about maybe some of the signs, of, meditation is going to be maybe an answer for you to, kind of head into 2025, and how to set goals, right? Because I think what Scott does, and then the other side of setting goals that maybe are unrealistic, maybe add to, the stresses. Because I think 2025 could be remarkable for a lot of different reasons, but you got to, know where you're starting from, both mentally, spiritually, physically, etc. So.
Yeah. We like in the business coaching space, we work with our clients to set these really bold, audacious goals.
Yeah.
And then, but most importantly, is we figure out how to relentlessly attack achieving those goals.
Yeah.
And that's the part that's hard for most people. Right. A lot of people can set up a vision board or envision a different future, But how do they achieve it? That there is some secret sauce.
Yeah, so we'll get into a little more of that. We got about 20 seconds heading to the break. We are here with co-host Mo Russo and special guest Scott Gordon, calling today from Southern Arizona. You are listening
Southern
to
California.
Southern California. We are in Southern Arizona.
We
He's
are. Yes, we are.
Thanks, Mo. Welcome back to the Marketing Corner, the last segment of our afternoon. We have co-host Mo Russo and special guest Scott Gordon, but I always start this last segment by thanking John, our engineer. Gave me some great advice for you, Scott, on how to manage somebody who called in.
First, right?
Yeah, this is the first where we had a guest call in for the whole show. So thank you, John, for helping me out. Our sponsor is Bill Netherton from Professional Bartenders Unlimited. He will be out there at Arizona Bowl, pouring a lot of beer for all you guys hitting the tailgate. My buddy David Bradley, Medicare A to Z, his son is a new police officer in Missouri. Missouri. Yeah, so congratulations.
So they have to show him stuff.
Wow. Next week is going to be Candace Seaton Photography. She will be your host. Candace, please do not curse while you're on the show. Jamar Jordan, tax specialist. Danny McPadden, Last Bridge Media, phenomenal videographer. My buddy Mark Weiss, Sales Performance Strategies. A couple of new sponsors. One, JD Delgado with Roofs Are Hot.
Oh, JD, nice.
JD is he'll be in a few weeks with a buddy of mine, Don Zavis. Which if I get
Don's the guest.
Don's the special guest. If I get 12 words in that show, I'll count that as a win.
Yeah, right.
I say that very respectfully. Don is tremendous. And another new sponsor, Jose Oliver from Awakening Minds LLC, just heard his commercial. He's an amazing dude.
Yeah,
he's very intriguing.
He just connected with me on LinkedIn, so I'm looking
Jose
forward
Oliver.
to meeting him.
Yeah. And of course, Mo Russo, executive and business coach. Thank you so much for being a co-host today, Mo. And thanks, Scott Gordon. And we're heading the last segment here. We're going to get into what did we say we're going to talk about this last segment with Scott?
We're going to talk about whatever you want.
Yeah. Scott, fill in the holes. What did we miss in the first three segments that you really want to, stress to our audience, and also tell our audience what's the best way to reach out to you?
Yeah, and plus, I think you had asked him about the science. Like, explain a little bit more about the science.
Yeah.
Yeah, as we head into the new year, there's some things that I think that are important when we start to want to become more mindful of what we're feeling and what we're doing. And one of the easy, I think one of the things we could talk about briefly is just, where do you squeeze this into your life? Right?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people are, I just don't have time,
Right.
meditation. Gosh, where am I going to find 5 minutes? And so I always joke with folks that a lot of people believe that meditation is, I'm going to, sit in some yoga pose under a Bodhi tree for days and days and will attain enlightenment. And while that's probably a noble goal that many of us will never achieve, or few of us, mindfulness happens in the moment and happens moment to moment. And so when we find ourselves wallowing in the past, which is where we spend a lot of our time, and Bill Gates, is famous for saying we can't waste our time making a better yesterday, but many of us do. We spend our time, a lot of time and neural power trying to make a better yesterday, or we're off somewhere in the future worrying about things that may or may not happen. And we got to bring ourselves back to the present. So micro-mindfulness moments are these moments of you're sitting at your computer and you're feeling a little stressed out about something. You stop, you pause, and you do a quick breathing exercise. Even 3 to 5 deep breaths will help bring you back to the present. And it's about being mindful of, am I present or am I somewhere else? And most of us humans spend the vast majority of our time being anywhere but the present. And the fact is, the present's the only thing there is. There is nothing else. The past happened in some past present. The future is going to happen in some future present. And we're always just sort of hurtling through space and time in this ever-present moment. And yet so few of us ever take advantage of that fact or appreciate it because we're off somewhere else. So micro-mindfulness, I think, is important. And as we go into the new year and making resolutions and things that are popular this time of the year, I often like to take very complex tasks and break them down into small bite-sized pieces. And I when I get out on my morning walks, and I usually walk anywhere from 5 to 7 miles a day with my dogs.
Wow.
In the morning. I have a mantra that I do every morning, and it goes something like this. It's, I'm going to be impeccable with my word, meaning that I'm going to be truthful and both to myself, because often we lie to ourselves about all sorts of things. So being impeccable with your word means being truthful with others as well as with yourself. There is no I, me, or my to take anything personally, so I really try not to take anything personally. Things happen, and they are what they are. Then I make no assumptions about anything. And then the last thing I say to myself is, I'm going to chop wood and carry water. And chopping wood and carrying water is not like, the sexy, just do it, like Nike says, like, just do it. Well, that sounds really easy, but most of what we do in business and in life is not sexy. It's the chopping the wood and the carrying the water. It's just the day-to-day of making a business work.
Right.
And Mo, talked about that earlier when he mentioned, get in there and you're going to go aggressively after these goals. We're going to set up these audacious goals and go after them. But most of going after these goals is the chopping the wood and the carrying the water of the day-to-day of just making things happen. And the tremendous thing that happens when you chop wood and carry water every day is there's a inflection point that happens after days and days and days of doing this, right, potentially months or a year, where nothing seems to be happening, then all of a sudden it takes off like a rocket, and people will say, well, that's overnight success.
Right.
Well, that's only the stuff that's only the part of the iceberg that's sticking out of the water, right? That's the overnight success part. It's all the chopping of the wood and everything you do every day that gets you to that point. And meditation, I think, and mindfulness really helps bring you back into balance so that you stay focused. You're not getting off track. You're staying on track. You're able to adapt because your neuroplasticity increases. So if, life throws the inevitable curveball at you, you're able to kind of bob with it and maybe even hit the cover off the ball because you're in the mental space to be able to handle it rather than having a meltdown because you're buckling under anxiety and stress.
I loved how you mixed all that with a baseball analogy, Scott, is that those 4 things you do, is that based off of the 4 agreements by Don Nico?
It absolutely is one of my favorite books.
Yeah. Mo had it.
I had it up too.
We were both had it on our phones, and we're like, "Oh, that's what it is." Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic book.
Yeah.
And that's become my daily mantra since I read that book. Every morning when I walk, I start off it. I say the 4 agreements.
Yeah, would you recommend that as a good book for learning about mindfulness to the listeners?
I really would. I learned a lot from the book. I've probably read it 5 or 6 times. I've read all of his books. I recommend it to folks. I really like the Toltec philosophies that he talks about in those books, and this whole idea of the dream weaver. You think about, the Toltecs believe that you dream when you're asleep and you're dreaming while you're awake, and that's a hard thing for a lot of people to wrap their heads around. I know it was for me at first, and as you start to think about it, you go, life is what you make of it, and if you've made the decision that you're going to be a miserable person, then that's the dream or nightmare you're going to live. If you've made the decision that you're going to be a happy and abundant person, then that's the dream you're going to dream while you're awake. I think that it's tremendous books. I really enjoyed them.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites and one I recommend to my clients as well. I've only had one.
Notice I kind of tweaked the agreements for myself.
You did.
And that's
yeah.
Oh well, yeah.
I made them my own. I think everyone should.
It's even more powerful. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, one book that I always read once a year, and I just got finished with it right now, is The Alchemist. It just kind of resets
another
me.
good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the other one I really like to read once a year too is called Illusions, which is by Richard Bach, the guy who did Jonathan Livingston Seagull, and it's about it's about how to become a messiah, and there's so much wisdom in that book.
When people are setting their goals for 2025, we've got 3 minutes left, Scott, till the end of the show. Is there? I mean, do you recommend that they share that with, and this is a question for you too, Mo, is this something you would want to kind of bring in your inner circle? Is it just more of a personal thing, or how do you set those big goals, and how do you prepare yourself to reach them?
I think that personal goals should be personal. I believe that there's a lot of power that gets dissipated when we talk too much about what we're going to do. That's just a belief that I have. Obviously, corporate goals and business goals not only need to be shared, but they need to be,
Celebrated,
adopted by everybody. Right? Everyone's got to agree that this is what we're going to do.
Agreed.
So I think it depends on the goal set, if it's a public goal set or if it's a personal goal set.
Interesting.
No, I totally agree with that. I think business goals need to be shared with every single employee.
Right.
They need to be drilled into what those are, and then what the strategies are to achieve them.
Yeah.
You got to get everybody aligned and on the same page.
Yeah. So, Scott, are you doing anything special to bring in the holidays or the New Year out there?
Well, it's just the mellow, just having the kids home and
Nice.
going to some holiday parties and stuff. But no, it's trying to avoid all the travel that I hear is going to be quite crowded this holiday season.
Yeah. Well, once again, we thank you for being on the show. We really, really appreciate you taking the time, especially when you're up in the mountains and enjoying that. So, do you want to? People are able to find you on LinkedIn, correct?
Yes, yes, you can reach me on LinkedIn, absolutely.
Is there any other way? Do you have an email address you want to share?
Just message me on LinkedIn. I think that's probably the best way.
Okay.
I'm very responsive there. Yeah.
Okay.
You can find me. I think it's just Scott Gordon at the Leadership Lab.
Okay, cool. So once again, thank you very much, Scott. We'll let you go right now, and we got a minute left to the show, and I want to let everybody know that the hot seat is returning. It's going to be every second Wednesday, where we have two panel experts come on to talk about their expertise in their area. We're going to have two experts talk about traditional versus digital marketing. One of the experts is from here at 10:30 in Bustos Media, Christopher Lindbergh. He's going to be talking about traditional means of marketing.
Okay.
And then,
Oh, are these back at the Sands Club, or have you found a new venue?
phenomenal question, Mo. They're not at the Sands Club. They're at the Spark Project Collective, which is on Broadway in Rosemont, around there.
Okay.
Yeah. So tremendous venue. A shout out to Johnny for. It's really a partnership with Candace and I and Johnny and his team out there, and we look forward to it. It's every second Wednesday. Tickets are available online, $15 to get in. And again, thanks for tuning into the Marketing Corner. Candace Eaton will be your host next week, and wish everybody the very happiest holidays and a great New Year.
Yeah, happy holiday, everyone.